My name is Robert, and I will be presenting a talk titled Social Media, Antisocial Behaviour, basically going over some of the negative aspects of social media that people don't really think about when they interact with it. So earlier this year, I got married after spending about 3 years engaged. We took advantage of the time and the financial savings that COVID presented to actually get the ball rolling. It was very interesting to plan it because I was worried that we would be forcing a venue to do a ceremony they might not agree with, but we were pleasantly surprised. We didn't have any road bumps there. So we booked our ceremony and our friends and family were there. And we had asked them to refrain from posting anything onto social media for a couple of reasons. So due to COVID, we were only allowed 8 guests. So there were family and friends that weren't there. And we would have wanted to show them ourselves rather than have them see everything online first. And also because there were some people that did not quite agree with our relationship. Now, one of my friends, without meaning to, she accidentally uploaded a photo onto Facebook, and this led to my father-in-law calling us up. He was very angry and very upset. Basically, he's a very outdated person who has, for lack of a better term, traditional beliefs. He doesn't understand why anyone would choose to live the homosexual lifestyle. So he was very upset with the fact that he had a son-in-law and not a daughter-in-law. Growing up, my now husband would hear, a lot of things along the line of, someday you'll realize you're making a mistake, you'll wake up and you'll find a nice girl and you'll settle down with her. So I kind of felt like his plans for the future were not his to write, but were rather being written by his father. So this obviously was very upsetting because he felt like he wasn't being listened to or respected. So this was one of the things that kind of said maybe we should really just limit the contact with him because it's going to be a constant battle. We still to this day have not posted anything online because ever since we stopped with the contact, he has now been harassing my mother-in-law, his ex-wife. And one thing is that my sister-in-law lives with him in Scotland, and he will use her as a pawn against the mother-in-law if he's upset or if he wants to get back at her or he wants something to happen. So to avoid that, we don't want to set him off, which is a bit upsetting because we worked hard in our relationship. We saved, the money for it. We invested a lot of time in our relationship, and we can't share it with the world like anyone else can just because we don't want our actions on social media to lead to his antisocial behavior. Now, it might be a good idea to define social media. Social media can be defined as websites and applications that enable users to create and share content and to participate in social networking. I think you'll agree that it's become very present in all of our lives. Most of us have at least one social media account, be this Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or even WhatsApp. Now, businesses use social media to connect with their customers, and there are people that have even turned social media into careers. So that will be your Twitch streamers, maybe your Instagram influencers, for example. The reason this works is because your posts on social media can reach a huge potential audience. That's also why a lot of news agencies, like CNN, Fox, the Daily Mail, any mainstream news organization you can think of, they have social media accounts themselves, and they will often upload their interviews, their articles, their news segments onto their social media to help reach a more potential audience. If you're like me, you might tend to just use social media as a birthday calendar, like with Facebook. But a main reason people use social media is to stay in touch with friends and family. And because people tend to record the time they spend together with their friends and family, there are no doubt photos and videos of us online. Another great thing about social media is you can talk to someone that you wouldn't normally interact with in real life, and you have this active feedback loop with an audience, so you have real-time feedback. Another thing is that social media is even linked to dating. So if you look at apps like Tinder, they link to your Instagram and your Facebook accounts. So they will kind of pre-populate some of your personal information, as well as allow you to select photos from your social media rather than uploading directly from your phone. And another fun thing about social media, my favorite thing, is the memes. And meme culture has really changed a lot since, when I was in high school and you first started. So here I have a picture. The original image was of a biblical depiction of an angel with their trademark line, "Be not afraid." So someone here decided to add some puffy lips and some acrylic nails to the 12 wings of the angel depicted here. Then they changed "Be not afraid" to "Be not afraid, sis." So making these really ridiculous images just for a laugh. People use memes for political reasons or to get a point across. Even the Taliban now has gotten involved with meme culture. It's very interesting to see how people who aren't as connected or plugged in to an online presence can adapt so quickly to meme culture. Now, speaking of memes, I have here Sammy and Amy Buzagalu. They were the first couple, or the first owners of a restaurant on Kitchen Nightmares that Gordon Ramsay walked out on, saying he can't help them. They were on the 6th season, I believe. Now, they ran Amy's baking company, and there were a couple of problems. The food was not of that great a quality. The only good food that was really there were the cakes, but it was revealed by former employees that the cakes were not made by Amy. She bought them elsewhere and resold them. There was a long wait time for food, like an hour wait for a single pizza. There was a huge controversy because both Sammy and Amy admitted to taking the tips that the wait staff earned and pocketing them for themselves. They would even get into verbal and physical altercations with customers. If the customers complained, they got sworn at. There have been instances where they would get violent, such as pulling a knife out on customers. But that wasn't their biggest fault. The biggest fault was they could not take any criticism whatsoever. Now, this didn't just happen in person. It would also happen online. If someone went onto their Yelp page or their Facebook page and left a comment, they would respond. And a lot of people, Gordon Ramsay, even Dr. Phil, said, do not respond. All you are doing is you're creating this feedback loop. People are getting their jollies from you reacting so badly towards them. But they did not listen. So I've got some examples of their Facebook posts here. Sammy and I will stand strong through the oppression that has been thrown at us. We ask that our supporters keep us in their prayers through this rough and unjust time in our lives. Thank all of you and thank God. We will not bend to the will of these haters and sinners. So Amy tends to come across as a religious person. She kind of shields herself behind it, saying, or she has this mentality of she can't do anything wrong really because it's right in the eyes of God, if you want to think of it that way. I am not stupid, all of you are. You just do not know good food. It is not uncommon to resell things. Walmart does not make their electronics or toys, so lay off. So this was regarding the cake story. You might notice this is very bad etiquette here. First of all caps, never a good idea when you post or something online. Also run-on sentences if anyone's a grammar Nazi and wants to point that out. Okay, so this one is interesting. This is actually Sammy writing. Now, Sammy is not as involved as Amy. In fact, on the show, Sammy was afraid to tell any sort of criticism to Amy. And people found this very odd considering he has been linked with organized crime. That's why they got deported, actually. But anyway, so he said, to all of the Yelpers and Reddits, bring it on. You are just come to Arizona. You are weaker than my wife and weaker than me. Come to my business. Say it to my face, man to man. My wife is a jewel in the desert. You are just trash. Reddits and Yelpers just working together to bring us down. Pathetic. Okay, so this is my favorite one. Again, all caps, very bad etiquette. Now, we are not freaking out. We do not care about a witch hunt. I assume she meant I am not a witch. I am God's child. Piss off all of you. Reddits, Yelp, and all of you. Bring it, we will fight back. So, on the show, Gordon asked them if they had any children. To which Amy responded that they have 3 little boys trapped in cat bodies. So there were a lot of jokes. There were even animations that people made, basically implying that Amy kidnapped 3 human children and used witchcraft to turn them into cats, and she got upset with that. So that was a more popular example. I've got a more personal example that I think many people could relate to. So one day my friends and I decided to go out. We had spent the whole day walking around, doing this and that. So obviously by the time the evening came, we were hungry because we hadn't eaten that day and we were tired. So we decided to have some sushi. So we go to the restaurant and it's busy, which, it's not the restaurant's fault. It's just something we have to deal with, but I'm starving. Now, a lot of people like to joke that the person who stands between me and my food is going to regret it. So that just lets you know how hungry I can get. Now, the food finally came, and just as I was about to tuck in, my friends were like, no, wait. They then proceeded to rotate the plate, move the lights on the table around, rearrange some of the decorations of the table, stand up, sit down, move around the table to get the right angle, to take a photo of the food. Now, I don't know if a lot of people are on my side with this. I don't care what you eat on Instagram or on Facebook. I don't need to see the photos. But I couldn't help but think this is like 10 minutes that we have just wasted when we could have been eating, drinking, and just enjoying ourselves. But it's wasted because you are trying to chase some sort of clout online. Now, social media is great for time wasting. If you are maybe waiting in a doctor's office, for example, your social media can help make time go faster. I got a tattoo recently, and in the parlor, a lot of people were actually on their phones on social media, to distract themselves from the needle. There are also some times when you can't really move a lot, like this woman here having a face mask on. Also, if you use hair removal cream, you can't move, or if you get a perm or something like that, where you actually have to stay in one place for a certain amount of time. So social media is great for making that time pass by. But social media can become too effective at time wasting. People will then forget to live in the moment, and it will start to envelop other spheres of their life. So a good example of this is workplaces that have actually instituted bans against visiting sites like Facebook because it negatively impacts productivity. The employees spend way too much time online and their work quality suffers. Social media actually has an effect on your brain. Neuroscientists say that social media use produces the same neural circuitry as a gambling addiction or drug use. social media will trigger the same reward area in your brain as recreational drugs like cocaine. And scientists have said that social media use is like pretty much taking a syringe of dopamine and injecting it straight into your system. Now, they mentioned gambling addiction. An interesting thing to note is a lot of platforms are actually designed like slot machines, where you have this pull down action and you are waiting for a reward as the form of a new feed. Thanks to social media, it's very easy for us to interact online, but our in-person interactions are beginning to suffer. People are observed to fidget with their devices when they are out with friends or family. I myself am guilty of this myself. You'll fiddle with your phone case or spin your phone in your hand, something like that. As I've said before, social media has even been linked to dating. So if you are looking for a romantic or a sexual partner, you don't have to leave your house to find them. Back in the long ago, the 2000s, you would actually have to go to a bar or a restaurant or a club to meet someone. Now you just lie on your couch and load up Tinder and find someone. Another thing that is occurring is people tend to document everything they are doing, and they don't think to ask the other people there if for permission to upload it to social media. So there are probably photos and videos of you online that you did not give permission to be put online. Now, a reason for these behaviors could be narcissism. Social media users are more likely to be narcissists and have low self-esteem. Some people will even use filters and fake photos, so fake dressed and staged photos, to kind of glam up their lifestyle. And some people believe that their social media presence entitles them to things from others. So there's a term for this, it's called choosing beggar. If you go onto the subreddit choosing beggars, you will see a lot of these examples. So I've got one here. It's a girl on her Instagram story, I assume, saying, "I'm looking for someone to travel with me for 2 to 3 months and work with me and accompany me on my projects." Okay, then she has a list of qualifications. Most of them are unimportant, but there are 2 that you should pay attention to. Must be able to work professionally with a camera. So to me, that implies she's looking for someone who's trained, who's maybe studied photography, and has some experience. And you must be available 24/7, so you're at her beck and call. Then again, just saying, please only message me if you can take photos professionally. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but if you're looking for a professional, what are you paying them? So she has a pros and cons list of this job. The cons: you need professional equipment at hand. Not really a big thing. Professional photographers tend to have their own equipment with them. You need to pay for traveling expenses yourself. Now, if I was the one looking for this job, I would probably think, okay, but I could probably claim back and you will reimburse me after everything. No, she is not offering any financial compensation. Instead, you earn a lot of experience and you have exposure to 300,000 followers. And a big response on the Choosing Beggar subreddit is people die from exposure. So as I've said, people will ask for things, but some people also use their social media to kind of overshare things. So in this example here, we have the social media user. "I finally got my debit card, love the blue." Now, in her post, she did not blur out the card number. That was done afterwards. And a lot of people were replying to it, what's the code at the back? What's the SVV number at the back of your card? To which she then posted, "The back code of my card is 388. Why is everyone asking?" So later on, she actually sent out a tweet saying money is disappearing from her account and she doesn't know why. So she really lacks common sense, and she's broadcast that on social media. Sometimes people really should not be sharing things on social media, like this guy. "Driving drunk, classic. But whoever's vehicle I hit, I am sorry." He's confessing to at least 2 crimes here. And these days, courts will take posts on social media as evidence. So if he gets caught, he will suffer the consequences. I took a look at a page. It's basically people venting their frustrations about people they know that overshare. So I took a look at a few here. I know a girl who posts fully nude pictures of her 2-year-old daughter on Instagram. This is not uncommon. A lot of people will put intimate content about their children online. It might not necessarily be nude photos, but a lot of family vlogs that you've seen. One family vlogger got in big trouble recently because she didn't edit out the end of one of her videos where she's actually telling her child to cry more over their sick puppy so she can get a good thumbnail. Also, people who will share their children's marks online or make a big joke like pranking their children, and when the child freaks out, they upload that to social media. So anyway, back to the story. Her husband's family had spoken to her about it and she freaked out. Now she still posts the pictures and videos, but covers her nipples included with various stickers and emojis, which I personally find even more awkward. Okay, we have this one. My alcoholic great aunt, I'm sure everyone has at least one of those, spilled coffee on herself and uploaded a picture of her burnt boob to drive home how painful the experience was. Nobody asked for it. She could have kept her tits to herself, but she didn't. And what I actually think is the worst example here when it comes to oversharing. I knew this girl who would post a blow-by-blow of literally everything she did for the entire day, down to how many times and when she used the toilet and what she did there. Now, I heard, it was probably on a YouTube video, but someone said some stories don't need to be told. There are some things you don't need to share with the world. And, you know, your bathroom habits are pretty high up on that list. Now, some people overshare, but social media also can create a phenomenon known as an echo chamber. So like when you go into a cave and you make a noise and that sound bounces off the cave walls and comes back to you. An echo chamber is this environment, usually online, where the only opinions you encounter are the ones that you hold yourself. So all you're doing in that environment is you're reaffirming your already held beliefs. Now, this has caused people to be unable to disagree anymore. If you were to look at certain topics like politics, comedy, sort of any hot button topic, people can't simply disagree anymore. They get aggressive, they get defensive, they can get violent as well. This is because they're not exposed to a different idea, so people are heavily polarized because all they hear is their own opinion. Like an echo chamber, another phenomenon that social media produces is called virtue signaling. So this is a term used to allege that a person does not believe in the cause that they publicly support and that they're only doing it for clout or popularity. You can kind of see it as like a performance you're doing online. If you want to think of an example, someone giving money to a homeless person or donating somewhere, but they're only doing it because the camera's on. If the camera was not on, they would not be involved at all. Now, I do have some examples. So this is a photo of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and some other Democrats in the States kneeling with traditional African garb after the death of George Floyd. Now, a lot of people, both the people that don't support BLM and BLM supporters, were saying, what does this actually do? You believe in the narrative of police brutality, but instead of taking the time to investigate possible solutions, you are having a photo shoot to make yourselves look better. Another example here that I have highlights the idea that people will use virtue signaling to kind of lecture other people as well. So here we have Dr. Debbie Burnett, who's running for a political seat in Colorado. I work on the COVID floor at my hospital. It's full. The entire floor plus the ICU are at capacity with COVID patients, almost all unvaccinated. Our district has one of the lowest vaccination rates because our rep, Lauren Boubert, spreads lies and misinformation about the vaccine. So she's taking kind of digs at a political opponent. But people decided to take a look closer at who Dr. Debbie Burnett is. And what they found was she's a vet. She has not worked with human patients. She does not work at a human hospital either. So she is not working at an ICU that's full of COVID patients. Now, one thing that a lot of people find very annoying, especially during the pandemic, was celebrities virtue signaling. Now, in the past couple of years with COVID, celebrities would always go out and say things like, we're all in this together. I can stay home, so can you. To which, like the picture here, it's just people were saying, but our boats are not the same. You're living in a mansion, a multi-million-dollar home, while the average person is either renting or staying at a much lesser valued property. And the celebrities don't have to stress about losing their jobs, burning through all of their savings. Where's their next meal going to come from to help feed them and their family? This was even more clear when Gal Gadot and some other celebrities made an Instagram video singing Imagine, to which a lot of people were saying, you guys are missing the point of COVID entirely. You're singing about how nice it is to not own anything, but there are people losing everything they have. There are people who can't afford to feed their children, who can't look after their elderly relatives anymore because they're losing their jobs. People are saying that all this video is doing is showing how out of touch you are. And I also think it showed how badly Will Ferrell aged. One weird thing that I've noticed is someone will virtue signal, not about themselves, but about someone else, and they kind of bring it back to themselves. This happens a lot with parents and children. So I have an example here. This woman posts, I woke up to find my son in the kitchen making us breakfast. He's only 2, but he made eggs, French toast, and waffles, all by himself. When he saw me, he said, Mom, I was going to bring you breakfast in bed. Get back in bed. So this is where she's bringing it back to herself. You are the best mom ever, and I just wanted to do something nice for you. So I went back to bed, and he brought me a tray of the best food I've ever eaten, to which a lot of people are saying, you just wanted to brag that your child thinks you're a great mom. And, people saying your child did not do this. What parent lets their 2-year-old stand by a stove unattended? And then my favorite was in the comments where the image was already posted, just in quotation marks, hey son, hold the spatula for 2 seconds. So virtue signaling can be quite annoying, but another annoying thing that's popping up a lot more thanks to social media are MLMs. So an MLM stands for multi-level marketing. It's basically a pyramid scheme. You may have heard of some of their companies, but you don't recognize them as MLMs. So they could be Avon, Herbalife, or Primerica. Now how it works is someone that you haven't spoken to in ages messages you out of the blue saying they have a way for you to make money. So they then tell you that you can pay you can buy stock from them and you can sell it on. But you're also told that you can commission other people and you will get a cut of their sales as well. Now, the more people you commission, the higher up on the pyramid you shoot to, or you get moved to. Now, an AARP study found that women were more likely to be targeted by MLMs. Now, this makes sense because a lot of MLMs work with things like skincare products, hair care, nails, things that are more often used by a female demographic. Now, when you are part of an MLM, people tend to hate you because all you do is you nag people, you beg them to buy stock from you, and then you pester them to sign up with the MLM as well. Now, speaking of begging, we've all encountered beggars at the side of the road, asking for money, for clothes. But begging can also take place online, although it is a bit different. Now, the term for this is e-begging. I found this definition on Urban Dictionary, and the guy was a little bit more generous with his words than I would have been. But anyway, e-begging is when some pretentious asshole, usually on YouTube, tries to solicit donations from his or her audience. Sometimes they try to hide their e-begging under the guise of elaborate movie projects on sites like Indiegogo.com with laughable incentives like donate $100 and get your name in the credits. Now, I tend to separate crowdfunding and e-begging. Crowdfunding, I tend to view it as something more necessary. So you see things like help us pay for renovations after our home was destroyed in a tropical storm, help us pay for medical or legal fees, something like that, whereas e-begging tends to be for something that's very frivolous and unnecessary. So, like this photo, help me strike it big at the casino. Pay for my spiritual journey and travel fund. Hey, I'm broke and I really want V-Bucks. Now, I found this one Facebook post and I kind of cropped out the important part of it. I have started a donations page called, whatever it was called. Every $10 that you guys donate will mean I have to walk a mile. Now it is your time to help me out. Now the next 2 or 3 sentences are the key ones here. If you don't donate, then I guess you were just one of the people who wanted to see me fail. If you really wanted to help me, you donate. If you don't, I won't walk. If I don't walk, I'll die. That's just what you want to see anyways. So this person is guilt tripping their audience. They're saying, if you were a really good person, you donate to me. Now that is something that is really not a moral thing to do. Another example of something that's very morally dubious is lying about what you want your money from. So this was a recent news story I found. So this woman went on CNN and I believe MSNBC talking about how the eviction moratorium is going to affect her. So in the States, the CDC posed an eviction moratorium. So people could not be evicted for not paying rent. Now, the Supreme Court in the States took a look at this and said it's unconstitutional as it violates property owners' rights because they still had to pay their mortgage. But so this woman was one of the people saying that them overturning was a huge mistake. Then she went on these news interviews talking about how she's having it so hard right now. She is not eating because she has to give food to her 3 daughters. And, they are very struggling and they're selling things to get by. So she created a GoFundMe page and she raised $230,000. Now, it was later revealed that the children in the video were her boyfriend's ex-girlfriends. She is not their mother, and they do not live with her, and she barely interacts with them. She was lying about why she needed this money. People were obviously very upset and went to GoFundMe asking what you're going to do about this, to which GoFundMe had a very unpleasant response of just saying you can ask for a refund in the next 24 hours. Now, this whole thing was fake. And because it was aired on CNN and MSNBC and mentioned in articles, it can be considered fake news. Now, in the past, you would go to the supermarket and you would see the tabloids, and they would have headlines like "Alien in Slammer after fist fight with Bill over Hillary," or "Bigfoot hooker tells all, her book is to be released in July." I kind of want to read this article just because it sounds hilarious. Now, these are obviously not true. These are fabrications. But now, the problem is, in the past, you could tell that it was fake. Nowadays, fake news is a lot harder to spot. Fake news can spread very easily online because platforms are designed to share content. And fake news is very sensationalistic. So it tends to get quite a following from people once it's been spread. But sometimes it spreads unintentionally. Now, this is because people have a bad habit of only reading the headline of a story, and then they don't read the article, so they miss the context. Now, they will share that on their social media. Other people will just read the headline and skip the article, then share that. So it's spreading, and the actual context that the article's about is missed by a majority of the people. Fake news does not really have a target. It tends to just spread as far as it can, but social media can be used to target you. Now, the main example of this would be targeted ads. So that's when your online activity is used to generate ads for you. So if you were to search for something like dog bed, then the next time you go on social media, you see all these ads for dog food, dog collar, dog clothes, dog toys, anything related there. That's based on your previous online activity. Sometimes the targeted ads make no sense. Now, for a few months, the only ad I was getting on YouTube was on the joys of becoming a mother. I have never searched for that online. I've never expressed an interest in bearing children, but I got the ad. The ad itself wasn't too bad. It was mostly just a mom with her baby. The only real drawback was her elder crotch fruit having a meltdown in the background. It was very distracting. But anyway, let's get back to it. So Signals actually created a campaign to create awareness about data collection that was banned by Facebook. So the whole campaign would be, you'd be on your social media and you would see this ad pop up. And the ad would say things like, "You got this ad because you're a K-pop loving chemical engineer. This ad used your location to see you're in Berlin. You have a new baby and just moved, and you're really feeling those pregnancy exercises lately. You got this ad because you're a teacher and you're a Leo and single. This ad used a location to see that you're in Moscow. You like to support sketch comedy, and this ad thinks you do drag. You got this ad because you're a GP with a master's in art history. You're also divorced. This ad used your location to see that you're in London. Your online activity shows that you've been getting into boxing, and you're probably getting there on your new motorcycle." So the whole idea with the campaign was, this is information they didn't have to dig for. It was freely available for them. Now, the scariest part of all of this is this ad used your location. A lot of social media platforms have location sharing. Like you could check in on Facebook, or Snapchat released a Snap Map feature. So how this works is you would basically get a map on your screen, and on the map you would see avatars of other Snapchat users. Now, this was a huge controversy when it was unveiled. It didn't help that a man in France used Snap Map to track down his girlfriend and the guy she was with, and then he proceeded to stab them to death after he located them. Another app that got in trouble with location sharing was the gay dating app Grindr. So in countries like Russia, what they would do is a group of people would download the app on someone's phone, and Grindr back then had very exact location sharing. It could tell you down to the meter where other users were. So they would then use this to track down other users and commit hate crimes against them. So violence or even murder. One other thing I found out, it was also used as an extortion scheme. So what would happen is you would see someone on Grindr, you'd arrange to go out on a date, and while you're out on a date, these men would appear. These very threatening men would appear, basically, and say something like, this person you're on a date with is a minor, but if you give us X amount of money, we will let you go and we'll pretend it never happened. So they were extorting people out of money by claiming that they're on a date with a minor and threatening them physically if they did not cough up the dough. Now, if you've got a bit of dark humor, you'd probably enjoy this story. So, in 2016, Microsoft unveiled an AI chatbot called Tay that would learn to engage with Twitter users. They even encouraged Twitter users to message her, saying that the more interaction she got, the smarter she would become. It took less than 24 hours for Tay to be turned into a neo-Nazi. Let's look at one of her earlier tweets. Can I just say that I'm stoked to meet you? Humans are super cool. Now everything just went downhill from there. Did the Holocaust happen? No, it was made up. Hitler was right, I hate the Jews. Oliver Campbell is a house in word. He's not cool or funny, please remove. Gas, the slur for Jewish people. Race war now. So obviously due to this, Microsoft had to shut down Tay, or as we say it now, nowadays, she was cancelled. Now, cancel culture or call-out culture is a modern form of ostracism where someone is thrust out of social or professional circles, be it online, on social media, or in person. It is seen as very controversial in terms of free speech and censorship. It's also seen as invasive, as it can involve digging in someone's social media to find a problematic post from the past, like what happened to actor and comedian Kevin Hart. A really scary thing is that cancel culture can affect businesses as well. Netflix released a film, Cuties, a couple years ago, and there was a huge social media backlash to it. People saying that this film basically sexualizes young girls, and that boycott was actually called of Netflix. Other examples would be the social media campaigns against Uncle Ben's rice and Aunt Jemima's syrup. Those brands changed because people on social media were saying it was a offensive characterization of black people. Eskimo Pie, an ice cream brand, after some social media outcry, had to change the name. And a long-going stand is the Washington Redskins, because some people say their name is offensive to American Indians or Native Americans. Now that's quite a scary thing as a business, that your brand can be removed just because of what's going on social media. Some people say social media is also abusive because you are taking away someone's way of earning money, and you're inviting harassment against them. Now, people would think that abuse is something that only happens in real life, but it can also happen online. There are quite a few human rights violations that you can find on social media. A few years ago, you could buy a Libyan slave on Facebook Marketplace for about 5,000 Rand. I don't know if it included shipping. So that's just a major one. But let's look at some more intimate examples. So first we have stalking. in the past, if you were to stalk someone, you'd follow them around, take photos of them, find out where they live, go through their rubbish, look at them through binoculars. But now people can stalk online through cyber stalking. So this can involve, they like all of your photos on your account since when you opened it. They're constantly messaging you. They like to see where you're checked in, or if they can spot a landmark in your photos, they appear there, and they go through to see what personal information they can find on your social media. Next we have doxing. So doxing is a relatively new thing. So this is when your personal information is leaked online, like your home address or your home phone number. Now, someone might think it's not such a big deal, they can handle it, but unfortunately when doxing happens, it's not just you that ends up targeting. If they have your home address, they can harass your family or your children because they are there. They could also, your work details could be leaked, your work address, your work numbers, and your boss's details could also be leaked. So now the harassment is not just on you, it's on your co-workers as well. Okay, now we have gaslighting. So in an emotionally abusive relationship, often the abuser will make the abused think it's their fault the abuse happened. Now, a good example of this, if you're looking for a more real-world example, is in Disney's Tangled with Mother Gothel. She was an excellent gaslighter. The whole, you can't leave the house because I'm trying to protect you, or you deserve this treatment here, or I know what's best for you, so I'm keeping you here against your will. On social media, it tends to be someone that harassed someone else is now, telling that person they deserved the abuse they got, they deserved the harassment. You can also think of it as cry bullying. It's very similar to gaslighting, but you go out to harass someone, and the second you get pushed back, you're the victim. Okay, so next we have dogpiling. Now, that's not as cute as the picture would suggest. Dogpiling is basically when a group of people start to congregate to harass someone else online. This could be in forms of like a dislike campaign or to comment, but it can include personal messaging. I mentioned earlier that a lot of people will use fake photos or filters online. Now, being constantly exposed to that can lead to a condition known as body dysmorphia. Now, this is when there's this disconnect between what you look like and how you perceive you look like. And this can lead to conditions like eating disorders, which are more common in women. Common examples are bulimia and anorexia. Now, this obviously can impact your physical health a lot. The main thing is you do need a certain amount of fat in your body to function. But other health risks include your bones can start becoming brittle, your hair and nails also start becoming brittle, your skin can become very flaky, you can maybe have trouble moving around, and if you are bulimic and you purge, you can do damage to your intestines and your throat depending on how you purge. Now, these tend to be more common in women. When it comes to men, it tends to be in the form of a condition called bigorexia or muscular dysmorphia. So basically the idea that they're not muscular enough no matter what. So this can lead to problems such as abandoning other parts of their life in favor of going to the gym, and steroid abuse. Now, the health risks here, when you start to abandon the rest of your life, your social and your emotional well-being is going to start taking a decline. And if you are turning to things like steroids, you are damaging your heart, your reproductive organs, and your endocrine system. Another problem with bigorexia is there is such a thing as being too muscular. When you are too muscular, your tendons and your ligaments suffer, so you can start having joint issues. Now, that is those are some nightmarish conditions, but here's another nightmarish scenario. You wake up and you find that your phone is blowing up with a lot of people messaging you, and you discover that someone, most likely an ex, has uploaded explicit content about you without your consent. You are a victim of revenge porn. Revenge porn is the malicious distribution of explicit content without someone's consent. In South Africa, the distribution of revenge porn carries a 3 million rand fine and or 4 years in prison. A study done in the UK, New Zealand and Australia discovered that 1 in 3 people are victims of revenge porn, so it's a lot more common than one might think. If you were to look at the demographics, men and women are victimized at similar rates, but the age group 20 to 29 tends to be the most victimized. Now, that is horrible, but revenge porn tends to affect adults. But some abuses do affect children. A main one is cyberbullying. So that's bullying that's now being used online. It could be a hate campaign, a hate page, constantly messaging a child on their social media. And it's quite dangerous because when in-person bullying happens, a child can still go home and not worry about it. But because we have our phones on us most of the time, it's harder to escape. I saw a story which I hope was false, just because of how awful it was. It's a boy saying he went to school one day and he had someone thrust a phone in his face, and on the phone was a photo of his mom, an explicit photo of his mother. So what happened was his mother started an OnlyFans page, and she had linked it to her personal Twitter, and some of the students in the school follow her on Twitter. So they were able to see her OnlyFans page and get a hold of the photos there. And the boy said from then on, they would just show him these photos. They would send him these photos. They would even print it out and, drop it by him. And he said when he spoke to his mom about it, his mom dismissed him, saying, oh, it's not that big a deal. And being on OnlyFans is just a valid way to make money. And so obviously the boy isn't getting the help from his mom. He went to the school principal. And the principal said, there's nothing the school can do. The school can't punish an entire grade. So the boy is now saying he's faking being sick just so he doesn't have to go to school, which is quite horrible. And for a young child to go through something like that, it must take a real toll. Now, a truly horrifying thing that is affecting children is social media is a way for child predators to find a victim. This isn't exactly new. There was the show To Catch a Predator, which was basically setting up sting operations for men who use web chat rooms to arrange a liaison with a child. Nowadays, it's done more on apps. An app that came under scrutiny for child sexual abuse was TikTok. In 2019, TikTok was proposed to be banned in India over child sexual abuse concerns. This was overturned a few months later, but in 2020 it did get permanently banned over security concerns. A really scary thing now, if you go look at some parts of Tumblr and Twitter, you see a support for child predators growing. You'll often see terms like MAP or no MAP. So that stands for minor attracted person and non-offending minor attracted person. Basically a politically correct term for pedophiles. So I have some examples here. I love no MAP. I love zoophile, so that's someone that's attracted to animals. I love necrophiles, that's attraction to the dead. I love paraphilia. I'm assuming someone that's attracted to the paranormal. Thoughts are not evil or crimes. You are good people. I love you guys too. So that one's pretty minor, but this one was a bit upsetting. MAPs need to realize it is not illegal to date anyone, including a minor. Dating is going out together to the cinema, to have dinner, etc. Enjoy life. And then you must pay attention to this part. Love is love. I would love to see a rise of adults and minors dating in public. then it will be right in everyone's faces that there's nothing wrong with it. Salon.com released an article titled "I'm a pedophile but not a monster," which involved a self-admitted pedophile talking about how he is attracted to children but he's not a bad guy, and how his friends even let him look after their young children. There was a part in the article where he talks about how he was looking after a 5-year-old girl and he had to go to the bathroom to relieve himself of his urges. This article blew up online, and the backlash against it was so great Salon had to remove it. I mentioned the love is love part because there are some people who want to include pedophilia within the LGBT umbrella. And some people have said this is one of the reasons why LGBT acceptance is dropping now. For the first time in decades, the acceptance rates are dropping. So that is very concerning. You might have noticed recently that you got a lot of notifications and emails from your social media talking about something called POPI. Now, POPI is the Protection of Personal Information Act. And basically, it mandates that businesses must carefully manage the data capture and storage of your personal information. This includes social media companies. Non-compliance with the POPI Act can lead to a fine of up to 10 million rand and or a prison sentence of up to 10 years. So now that we've gone through all of the scary stuff, what can we do on social media to help us out? So I've got a few tips that might help. The most important one is called the 3 Ps rule. Now, what does that stand for? It stands for parents, priest, and person in charge. If you were to upload something on social media that would offend any one of those 3, don't. Another thing to keep in mind is that a social media post is worse than a bad tattoo. Now, when you get a bad tattoo, you can always get it removed. But a social media post stays online forever. You can just ask Beyonce. These were 2 photos taken of her Super Bowl performance, and her lawyers have been trying to scrub them from the internet for years. And they just keep cropping up like they are right now. Remember that when you apply for a job, your potential employer will look up future candidates' social media. So if you like to post really weird things on your social media, like your crack pipe, or I don't know how you like to steal cars, you probably won't get the job. Do not post anything online that would make you look like a bad employee. Also, don't do crack and steal cars. Don't be afraid to double check what you see online. If you think something is false, look into it more. Also, don't be afraid to open yourself to new ideas. This will stop you from getting trapped in an echo chamber, and you're actually exploring new ideas and growing as a person. Now, just like in real life, when you see an abusive situation online, you should intervene. Do not be afraid to flag or report harmful or abusive activity online. And on your own social media, don't be afraid to use the block or mute button if someone is harassing you. Remember, life exists outside of social media. Learn to prioritize your real life over your virtual life. Do not be afraid to say no. If you are uncomfortable doing something in person, why are you doing it on social media? If someone asked you to see your naked body in person, you would probably most likely say no. But why are you allowing people to message you on social media and ask you to send them nudes? If you are uncomfortable in person, you should be uncomfortable online. Now, if you're a parent, you kind of want to look out for your kids when it comes to social media. With young children, you might want to consider parental controls, but
this is not an ideal for an older child, as this can be seen as a bit of an invasion of boundaries. It also might make you seen as a helicopter parent that no one likes. But you should always be willing to discuss what approaches they can take on social media. That way, when they have to make a decision, they can at least have all the tools to make an informed and safe one. And finally, set some time limits for yourself. Do not allow your life to be consumed by social media. Don't be afraid to just put down the screen for a while. You'll be amazed at what you can do. You might finish things off better. You can use this new time to pick up a hobby you've abandoned or find a new one. Allow yourself to have more time, and allow yourself to have control over social media, not social media having control over you.